But you've actually moved on and kind of reinvented yourself a number of different times.
Hmm.
How do you know when to stop something, to walk away from something?
Oh, I mean, I haven't reinvented it myself. The post-rationalization of me, I guess, changes because one minute I'm the tech Internet of Things guy, and
Yeah,
everyone assumes I'm some kind of professor, computer scientist guy, which I'm not.
right.
Um, and then I write a book, and I'm supposed to be like an author guy, I guess, or doing a business. I'm supposed to be like a tech CEO. And these are all kind of like it's almost like you're the same actor playing different roles,
Mm,
you know. But if you look at, I don't know, who's a great leading man, like a George Clooney or Chris Evans, they're themselves and the character they're playing at the same time. Do you
right.
know what I mean? It's almost like an outfit they've put on.
Yeah.
The great actors really invest themselves in the role. It's if Meryl Streep was actually that person, this is what she would be like, kind of
Well,
thing. And I
okay.
think,
Let me ask you the question
yeah,
differently then, which is
yeah.
like, how do you decide when to move on to a new role? How to take off
Oh,
the robes and then put on new robes?
I
Because,
don't. I don't.
yeah, okay.
I don't. I get something like
Nudges you.
excites me, and I follow it, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But I think my it doesn't feel like a stopping; it feels like a starting.
Mm,
So it's always me. It has to be true to me, or it won't work. But also, it's like what's igniting my passion right now.
right, right.
And I think, I mean, there's a Thelonious Monk quotation at the beginning of How to Fly a Horse, which is a genius is a man most like himself, or the one
Okay.
most like himself.
Mm,
Okay, and there's a few people who I've seen who are very successful and very interesting people, and they all kind of say the same thing, right? So the reason I push back on the you've reinvented yourself is I think what I've actually done is discovered who I am, and to hell with everybody else's ideas of who I should be. And the who I am is weird, right?
yeah,
I'm into a variety of weird things
yeah,
that for other people might not add up, but that's because I'm me.
yeah,
So I
yeah,
think don't be a cliche. Follow the things that you find passion for, whatever they
yeah,
are, whether they fit somebody else's idea of who you are or not. And that's me. It's less about like so the MIT thing. I like came to a kind of natural end. We had a goal and we achieved our goal,
yeah,
right? And
yeah,
so back into business for me. And here are some really exciting like tech things I want to
yeah,
do. Um, and then I kind of have an idea for a book. I'm like, okay, I kind of want to write that down now. So
right.
it's more about just being pulled in the direction of your passion than deciding to move on. If that makes
Yeah.
sense.
It does in theory. And my own experience in practice is it's often harder. I found it harder to let go of stuff that I've done in the past
Hmm.
to reset myself.
Hmm.
A couple of years ago, I stopped being the CEO of a company I founded.
Okay.
And it took me quite a while to figure out what the next thing was that was calling me that wasn't plus or minus 10% what I'd already been
Hmm.
doing
Yeah.
because because it took me a while to get out of the valley of Box of Crayons. That's the name of the company, Box of Crayons.
Okay.
And I'm like, I'm
Right.
I'm still in the valley. And until I
Yeah.
cross the ridge line,
I get it.
I can't yet really see the rest of the landscape to figure out what the next path might be.
Yeah, but if you're going to write a new book, you start with a blank sheet of paper, right?
It's true.
So sometimes you have to recognize that the thing that you're doing is you've taken it as far as you can. It's time for somebody else to do it. It's not
Mm,
igniting your passion anymore.
yeah.
I mean, I'm always someone who's much more interested in doing new things and like maintaining existing things. And there's nothing wrong with maintaining existing things. I'm just not good at it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and so for me, it's like okay, when feasible, it's like I kind of need to stop doing this thing because it's
Mhm.
not as exciting as it used to be for me. It's reached a point where I'm not the right person or whatever.
Yeah,
Um, and I think you have to be comfortable with, and I don't know what I'm going to do next, but you have
right.
to make that space in your life. Now, this is the other thing about like capitalism, I guess, and the way we're all raised. This is idea that you have to be productive every day.
Mm,
Um, I mean, there's this wonderful, I'd commend it to anybody. There's this Japanese anime studio called Studio Ghibli. I guess it's not really anime, but animation. It's kind of this famous cultish. They make these cool animation movies, and there's a Japanese TV series that you can watch for free with like subtitles online about, I forget his name, but the main kind of director at the studio who makes movies. And I think for a couple of years while the cameras are following him around, he just comes into his office and screws around. He's waiting for his idea.
Yeah.
So he makes a cup of tea and he scribbles something and he makes a few profound statements and smokes a bunch of cigarettes and goes home. And he does that for a really long time.
Right.
And he's completely comfortable with it because he knows that he has to wait for the thing to hit him. He's kind of doing the work, right? He's kind of letting things percolate, but he's not putting himself under any pressure to produce. And I think what happens to working class people in a capitalist society, which is all of us, unless we inherited, billions of dollars or whatever. If you've ever had to like go to work,
that's not really my listenership.
Yeah, so you can eat, right? You're working class. There's really no such thing as middle class.
Yeah.
It's like, either you're working class or you've got more money than you know what to do with, right? And so we have this idea that if we have a day that's unproductive, like, it's the weekend, we're kind of allowed to be unproductive, but we've got all these chores to do, right? So there's this false idea that you can't stop what you're doing, not start doing something else, and wait to figure out what the something else is. And if you have the means to do that, and if you live frugally, it should be possible eventually for most people to have a little bit of downtime to think about what's next. Then that's the answer. I think the fear of moving on often is because we don't know what's next.
I think Kurt Vonnegut has a quote along the lines of, the purpose of life is to screw around or fart around and don't let anybody tell you otherwise.
He's exactly right. And now I want to say there's a lot of privilege in that, right?
There is.
You have to be fortunate enough to have, and it's not a huge amount of means, but just enough means that you can screw around. But that might not mean, you quit your job, right? But you might say to yourself, okay, I'm going to maintain what I'm doing now, but I'm waiting for the next thing. Yeah. But I do think it's okay to move on from one thing before you move on to another thing. You gotta have a gap.
Yeah. Hey, it's MBS here. Look, my podcast is 2 Pages with MBS. It is the podcast where brilliant people read the best 2 pages from a favorite book, a book that has moved them, a book that has shaped them. And then we have a really good discussion about the 2 pages they've read. If you're looking for insights about change, about philosophy, about society, this might be the podcast you've been looking for. Available anywhere you listen to a podcast.